I'm from Brazil, as Dr. Alan just said, and I'm the president of a nonprofit, Instituto Melhores Dias, and I have the pleasure to work for the last 30 years for disadvantaged communities, since Instituto Melhores Dias is a nonprofit. I am a founder member, and I have been evolving during these 30 years in a series of challenges that have been posed, not only that we already have, but that have arisen as COVID-19. So we work in all states of the country. Let me see yes, there we go. And we work, and the work we do is closely related to the 17 SDGs. And today I'm going to address just some of them, because it'd be too long to speak of all of them, but also because they are interrelated, they are intertwined, as we people are in one planet, in one world. So let's start with Rio 1992, where it all started. The start, I was there in Rio in 1992 with the first Earth Summit that discussed the United Nations Conference. 20 years later, did the Rio +20, which I was also present. In 2012, discussions began on what became 3 years later, in 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals, or the 2030 Agenda. So the focus today is to demonstrate initiatives from a Brazilian development organization on addressing the SDGs. We have been hearing from all those wonderful speakers about all of them. So by now, we all know much more than we did since the start of this conference. So let's think a little bit, how can we address them within the development context? Within a context where, as many said, there is no access to internet, there is no access to many of the facilities that would have helped to develop those SDGs. Let's start with number one, with no poverty. COVID-19 posed a real infliction in all of us, but especially in some of them. You know, in rural areas that are generally, rural areas are generally more difficult to reach and to work with. But on COVID-19, during COVID-19, the surroundings of the big towns and the not rural areas were the ones that lost most of their jobs, you know, that have those informal jobs. Cleaners, maids, street vendors, peddlers. And these people were at home and they could not, you know, they did not have what to eat. So we were able, during the 2 years, to deliver monthly baskets to 1,500 families. And I can tell you that it made a huge difference, in their survival. So now some of them are getting back, and kids are back at school, so they have meal at school, and the families are not so much at risk because of that. So let's go for number two, which is zero hunger. It's pretty connected, zero hunger with no poverty, but what we have done we have been doing is to build school gardens, because the problem of stunting and wasting among children is very big, and it really increased during COVID-19 pandemic. Actually, we published with WASD this Food and Nutrition and Public Health in the journal, a survey that we did with the children, showing how much it had increased, and the access to food was really hard for these communities. So what we did is to build community and school gardens to make sure that the families had what to eat. The school gardens, when the schools were closed, all the gardens in schools, the produce would go to the community around the school. And of course, the community gardens, people had the access to come and go and pick up the vegetables and eat them. And that was really, oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing a big mess here. Okay. And it was aligned with that. What we generally do is to teach nutritional education to the children, to the parents, to the teachers, to the cooks of the school, so they can cook meals that have what is grown in the garden. Because also with the pandemic-19, many people started, because it was cheaper and it would satiate the hunger, you know, eating ultra-processed food. And that has been, you know, a terrible drawback in the health of and the nutrition of not only the children, but also the adults. Growing children now, a lot of them are obese and malnourished. You know, they have anemia and obesity. And we have been targeting this with education, and also teaching them and providing gardens so they can eat better. The third goal is good health and well-being. Brazil has a very interesting public health program called Health Family Program. The Health Family Program, for each 1,000 families, there's one doctor, one nurse, one dentist, and 100 community health agents that visit the house and do the preventive health care. And so it's very important, because this community health agents enter into the house of the population, especially the outskirts, people that don't have access to pay for health insurance. So this is the public system. And I'll tell you, this is 80% of the country, you know, so it's the big chunk of the population. So we trained these community health agents in vector, of course, on COVID-19 and everything, control vector-borne diseases like Zika, dengue, and many of them that are very happen a lot in the north and the northeast, and also in the south and in the whole country. But also we did some training in alcohol abuse prevention, because during the pandemic, it really rose the number of people drinking, especially the ones that were not working, they were home, and one thing leads to another, and the rise of alcohol abuse, of course, is also one of the reasons, not the only one, that it raised the violence inside the houses and against children. And then I'll go to the next one, it's gender equality. We still have a lot to go when talking about gender equality for women in Brazil and in many parts of the world. And we have been working in this project at Marajó Islands, right there at the top of Brazil. As you can see, this little point there, it's in the Amazon. It's a beautiful island, but it's far from everything. And most of the place don't have access to the internet. They have difficulty going around because it's a very big island. And we got a call that the incidence of violence and child abuse raised dramatically. So we went there and started a program with the community health agents and also with the, community health agents and all with the teachers, you know, because although during pandemic, the children were not in school, they had online lessons, but then we reached the wall. Most of the children did not have access to internet. So we had to rely on the community health agents. Of course, when they came back to school, we continued the program to make sure that they knew what self-esteem and self-care was so important, and that they would not be afraid of telling the teacher, you know, who's the one closest to them when they are growing up, or the community health agent if anything had happened. So going back a little bit, when in the pandemic, the community health agents that goes to the house, you know, so many of them saw problems like that, you know, violence and child abuse. And some of them even said to us, we see it, but it's hard for us because we know the person, you know, we live in the same community. He's an acquaintance, or maybe, you know, a friend of a friend. How am I gonna, you know, it is a tough decision. That's what we told them. It is a tough decision, but it's a mostly needed one. You gotta do it, you know, even if it's, you know, it's important. So growing that mind that the child's life, the women's life matters so much that you gotta see it and appoint it to the right people to do something about it. Right now, we have a program in São Paulo, which is, you know, the capital, a big town, and we are also addressing violence and child abuse. So, of course, in Marajó Island, it was, you know, the highest rates in country. But in São Paulo and everywhere, it also happens. And we have been dealing with it and trying to educate the communities on the importance of addressing it properly. When it goes to clean water and sanitation, almost 35 million people in Brazil live without treated water, and around 100 million do not have access to sewage, resulting in preventable illnesses and intestinal parasites and diarrheas that can lead to death also from contamination. So what we have done recently is to involve children and schools. And when I say schools and children, we also involve the parents, bring them. And we talk to the teachers, because the schools in Brazil are the institutions that really gather the population. That's where you can call the population, you know, it's a trusted institution. So we can either rural or urban, it's a place where parents come and they are open to hear. So we from 58 schools, we did the environmental classes for 6,780 children in many states. And we did the conservation of 65 local water springs, providing access to clean water. This is a huge problem when there's pasture and the animals just walk through, the water springs. Of course, they don't know better, but the owners of the lands do not protect the springs. So we had to map and talk to the landowners and convince them that it was important to let us provide that water spring would be properly planted around. So, we planted many trees around each water spring and put a fence around it so that the animals would not again go and undo the job. So this is, we talk about SDGs, and there are many things we need to do, but this is a huge unfair world. As I say, it's an unfair country, Brazil. We have places where we have access to everything, and there are places where there are no access to anything. So unless, the policymakers, the government, the youth that will be future policymakers and governments think about it, we cannot live anymore because we are all in the same planet. So Instituto Melhores has been supporting the United Nations Global Compact since 2019. So we are part of it. And our organization is founded on the principle that is through long-standing partnerships that we create sustainable and durable change in communities. And I'm gonna finish this with this beautiful picture of Rio with the Jesus with his open arms, opening the arms for all of us, for these beautiful words that we have. And we are all part of it. Of course, we have to honor the place we come from, but we are in the same planet. And if we do not think of us as just one, this is not going to change much. Some few with access. This is the big organizations that think about globally have to change. Thank you.